Hello, I'm the Archangel Daniel. In this video we're going to do a brief overview of the first history. When God created the first batch of angels, the Gabriels, they lived underground, and then later God came up with the atmosphere with a stabilized weather system using a moon, and the planet had its own sun, planet Heaven. Now God then made mountains of rock and then used wormhole cutting to carve caves into the rock for angels to live in. The weather was like Ireland during winter, so it was freezing. And God later found a type of particle produced by wormholes which could be knitted together to produce a type of robe which was white. The robes God constructed were designed to keep angels warm. It hung down to the ankles and had long sleeves and a hood. It is done up in the center of the chest with string. So that kept the angels warm, and God created a lake and streams which naturally formed from the rain and weather which they had on the planet. So the angels would go to the creeks and wash, and also to drink water. The first type of food that was ever created, aside manna, was a plant similar to barley, and this was mixed with water, and then when dried would become a type of biscuit. They could also mix it with breast milk. So the only items of which angels could drink, God and the angels could drink, was either water or breast milk, and the only type of food was a type of barley plus manna. And the angels lived in caves, and they also had a blanket that they could use for sleeping at night. There was no light at night time. It was pitch black. For going to the toilet, God used wormhole cutting to cut holes into the ground through the rock for a pit for going into the toilet to do to go and do poos. So and they had a type of bench that they could sit on in order to safely do their business without falling in. At night it was extremely hazardous. Some angels were later lost because they fell into the pit. God knew of this and would often go there looking for them if someone went missing. The other hazardous place to go to was the lake and also the rivers. If an angel went in there, they could not swim back then, they would drown, and it was forbidden for them to go into water, period. So some angels' lives were lost because they went into the rivers and creeks and lake and were lost. They were later recovered after swimming was discovered. The confrontation with Satan was similar to this history, but vastly different. So God created batches of angels, and some of those angels had relationships and moved out of the batch and into their own caves. Them and their families lived. They also used ferns to sleep on. When God created ferns, they were able to make beds out of the ferns and use the ferns to help tidy the cave up. When Satan first became a problem was one day he changed his name from Lucifer, because he's from the second Lucifer batch, to Satan. On the day that he did this, he said that Satan means against God. Back then, he only had 6 followers. And him and his followers went to the caves of the batches and dragged them out one by one and took them to the lake and drowned them and raped them in order to force them to follow him. When someone was drowned or suffocated, Jesus and God were notified, and they would go to the lake or the river, wherever it occurred, and in Jesus' case, he would just place his hands above the chest and emit gravity, and it would restart the heart and make the person conscious again. God used a similar method in order to revive people. So Jesus was not aware of what was going on. He sort of had a clue, though, because of the heckling that he received from Satan and his followers. Satan and his followers increased in number to 100 million. There was a confrontation later, and Satan and his followers confronted God and were going to try and stab God. And then I came over and took the knife off Baal. He was about to stab God. And then I gave Satan a hiding. And then God asked me to bring Satan to the area where the batches' chambers were. This is an area forbidden for angels to go to. And then God created a wormhole which went to the storage dimension, which we call hell. And I was told to throw Satan into the wormhole, but do not go past a certain line marked on the ground by God. I then threw Satan through the wormhole, and then all of Satan's followers followed him and went in there. They all died. Satan died of his injuries, and all of his followers died of hypothermia and of other injuries that they came across when they fell. A lot of them got crushed because of the number. It was 100 million. When the last of Satan's followers went through the wormhole, God then closed the wormhole, and that was the end of it for Satan and his followers. They were stuck in the storage dimension on a barren planet made of rock, which had gravity and atmosphere. There was nothing to eat or drink there, but there was air. In soul form, Satan and his followers grouped together. All they could do was talk. God, Mary, Jesus, and their descendants, and everyone else in heaven, would often go to God and Mary's house, and sometimes God would open up a wormhole so that they could heckle Satan and his followers. So from heaven, people used to, for entertainment, heckle Satan and his followers who were in the storage dimension and were starving, cold and thirsty. So that was 400 billion years ago when that occurred. The first batch of angels was 450 billion years ago. After God had created the universe, and in particular Earth, God made batches of humankind, which are exactly the same as angels, and they were brought to Earth by wormholes. So a single wormhole was opened, and they'd all walked through it, and that is how they got to Planet 1. For humankind on Planet 1, it was a very simple existence. They lived in Belize. There was 50,000 in the first group of humankind that came to Earth. They all survived on one particular type of vegetable, and it was a bland type of carrot, but it was white like a parsnip. They lived there in a tropical jungle environment, and there was plenty of water and the vegetable for them to eat. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.